For the record, all 7 commissioners are present. Before we actually go into the budget process of the city manager, what she'd like to do is just introduce the nonprofit organizations that we've asked to come here today and give a brief overview of their request and their process going forward.
Thank you. As requested by the mayor and commissioners, we do have everyone present today. And I'll start with Allison Miller, the director of the Rehoboth Beach Public Library. Allison, if you would introduce the folks that you brought with you, please.
Hi, I'm Allison Miller, library director of the Rehoboth Beach Public Library. With me, I have our program librarian, Tyler Antoine, and our board president, Tom Munford.
So, you want to speak from the microphone here or over here, whichever you're more comfortable?
I can speak from here, if that's all right with everyone. Okay. I'm from the Rehoboth Beach Public Library. We've been across the street for about 20 years now in the new building. It was built in 2000. That was when it was completed. It moved 33 years ago. It used to be the old telephone building, and in that time, our library has evolved and grown. And we have noticed that there are some repairs that we need to do. Through the state, we are able to go through a needs assessment process. So with that process, we'll be doing a strategic plan and looking at where we need the improvements in both the building and as far as community outreach and reaching more to our Rehoboth community. We serve in our library district about 15,000 people. 45% are full-time residents of Rehoboth, and we work very hard to serve our community through books. But more than books, too, we also provide computer classes and partner with the Community Resource Center. We also partner with several other businesses like Browse About Books and the Village Improvement Association to bring enrichment to the community and to the lives of our residents. Are there any questions? I hand out a packet to everybody about what we've done, and this was just in 2018, our fiscal year, which runs July to June. This year so far, we have been making strides, and looking at the penultimate page in FY 2019, what we've done so far, by our halfway point in December, we've already exceeded halfway in our stats. So this year, we do definitely anticipate to do more than we did last year.
Mayor, how do you envision conversations going today? Do we want to hear from one agency and then comment on it?
I would think so, rather than having them come back. Yeah,
okay.
I would think so.
Okay.
So. I don't have any questions, but if you have anyone has any questions for Allison, please feel free.
No, the letter there asked is for 24,000. I think we put in the budget 15,000, which matches previous years. We have a letter from you all dated November 16th, articulating your desires. Well, right now, I guess I'm comfortable just staying the course with the 15,000.
I am too. Were you done, Stan? I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I am too, but I just was curious your perspective on I think if I'm looking at your chart correctly on page, I'm not sure what page it's on, but this chart. Mm-hmm. Does that show that overall visits have gone down, to 71,000? Is that right?
Yes, there has been a national trend.
National, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's interesting to me that the wireless use has gone up, almost doubled, right?
Yes, as our computer uses go down, people are coming more and more with their own devices and connecting to our Wi-Fi, so they're making up the difference there.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you for answering that. Would you say that's a national trend too?
Yeah.
Huh. Fascinating.
Yeah, as more people have their own devices.
Huh. Thank you.
Thank you.
Allison, thank you for being here, and thanks for having a first-class library right
Yes.
on Main Street here. I see in your letter that county funding has been dropping. Is that
Correct.
right? And as well as state, are both of those entities?
The state has been flat for almost a decade, and if you write your senators and your representatives and urge them for $1 more per resident, all the libraries can raise $1 million to benefit all the libraries throughout the state.
So when you say flat, does that mean the exact same dollars or flat in terms of inflation?
Flat in terms of, actually, if you consider inflation, it has gone down, but we've been receiving the same amount of funding for almost a decade at the state level.
Thank you.
Allison, welcome. The 3% that you get from sales, what is that sales?
Those are the fines, fees. We charge printing. We also have a notary, and also our book sales, and we also have other fundraisers such as bricks that we're now doing, and we also rent the upstairs room for private parties.
Any other questions for Allison? Thank you very much, Allison.
Thank you for considering my proposal.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we own that building, or do we own the library building, or is that owned by? The library owns it. Okay, thank you.
Next, we have the Executive Director of ClearSpace, Mr. Wesley Paulson, and turn it over.
Thank you. Good afternoon. ClearSpace has been in Rehoboth since 2010, and this year is our 15th anniversary. Our current audience is 18,000 with 500 students, and that reflects an increase from 12,000 attendance to 18,000 attendance since we moved into town. We have made a request of a capital contribution for our campaign to build the proposed theater up at 415 Rehoboth Avenue. We've done due diligence on the project. We've had our accountants look at the numbers. And as part of the campaign, we've been working with Cam Yorkston, who is our fundraising counsel. He has canvassed a list of about 40 prospective donors, either being couples or individuals and foundations. One of the things that we have included in our projection is the request for a capital contribution from the city to support the project. And in fact, our major donor, in conversation with Mr. Yorkston, has indicated that as they like to do these things, that they may make part of their grant offer to us contingent on a match from the city. I've seen examples of that, not necessarily with this one, with funding down at the Botanical Gardens, where Longwood said, well, here's a $500,000 grant, and you get an extra $250,000 if you match that under these conditions, ... So that's an example of how this works in the fundraising world. So I believe that's the simple nature of the request. I recognize the constraints of the city budget and certainly happy to work out, as we would do with any donor, some sort of, over a number of years kind of thing and things like that that would be amenable to the finances of the city. But it would be great timing with the current budget that we would have some contribution from the city as part of the current budget, so that when we do go to the funder, we can say, we can surprise them and say, look, we've already got the city stepped up. This is what they're interested and able to contribute. So that's the nature of the request. I've distributed some financial documents. We are audited annually. Last year we had excellent revenue stream, positive cash flow. The theater's balance sheet is in the black after a number of years of, the word that comes to my mind of digging out of a situation in 2012 and 2011 that was our own creation, but we're in a good place. We're excited about the project. As I said, we've had financial feasibility done. We've had our auditors look at our projections for how it would be funded and how the loans would flow, and everything seems to be in good order. So this is the financial piece, in addition to other things that we're working on for the project. Happy to take any questions.
Well, I noticed we received a letter from you dated January 16th asking for funding. Just wanted to acknowledge that. It's asking for an annual pledge of $100,000 for each of 2 years. I love clear space. I minored in theater and drama, and I'd love for y'all to stay in town. However, when it comes to spending public funds, I'm not sure this is, well, for me, it's not a fit. And so I'm not receptive to doing that. I'm not even sure that with what you're going through, if it would be considered a conflict of interest. But regardless, I don't see that it's a fit for our normal pattern. You know, we haven't given donations to every group that's come in front of us. The VIA is the last one I can think of. And in part, some of the rationale for not using them is that they were more of a club, I think, with membership, a little different situation perhaps, but again, there you go.
Wesley, thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Just for the record, is ClearSpace a nonprofit organization?
Yes, we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. Mm-hmm. We file a 990 every year.
And the grant that you reference, that's a government grant?
No, it's the particular funder would be I believe it's a foundation. I don't have all the, Cam held his cards pretty close on some of the information because it was a confidential interview, but it's, I think it's an individual or a foundation. It's not a government grant.
I have two comments real quick. So thank you for preparing this and for bringing the crew here again today to brief us.
We've got our board chair, Stephanie Whitcomb, who's our development director, and I think John Pitchford, who's one of our directors.
Great.
And a couple others.
Well, thank everybody for coming and for participating here. So I appreciate all the information and such. I'm going to half agree with Stan, so you get a half of a third agreement today. I agreed with him twice earlier. I can't do more than 2.5. So I'm going to half agree with one part of what he said. I think, unfortunately, today, right now, I think might be the wrong timing because you're still going through the process with the Planning Commission. But I, on the opposite of kind of what Stan said, I actually do think some sort of grant for maintaining or building or creating the cultural and arts capacity in the city is definitely within the city's budget, should be in the city's budget consideration. So I would just like to throw out as a thought, but would have to get consensus here that we may have to table this until because you're in part of the process where we can't really approve or disapprove things because you're in front of the Planning Commission, that maybe we table this request until you complete that process, but then have more of a discussion if you get through that and everything works out and you're moving forward, that we readdress this perhaps mid budget year or whenever you're through that initial process there. And assuming you get approval, then I think I would like to hear again and have a discussion on whether some sort of grant from the city is appropriate to keep the arts in the city. So that's what I'm going to throw out for consideration by the
I would
commissioners.
agree with that, Lisa. You are in front of the Planning Commission. I don't think it's something we could do at this moment. I think we do have to table it, and I do think it's important that the city recognize, like a museum, it's a cultural addition to the city that's important, and I fully support that. But it's a matter of waiting until you get approval before we could do anything.
If I might say something, you passed out some stuff, some charts.
Financial information, yes.
I think something's missing because I've got page 1 of your balance sheet, but I don't have page 2.
Oh.
Is it on the back of it?
It was on the back of the original, and I think she copied one-sided and not two-sided.
All right.
So I apologize for that.
Yeah, and I guess the same on the P&L.
Yeah, it just kind of, it rolls through.
That's what I figured. That would be helpful.
I'd be happy to send that back. Should that come back through Ann or?
Yeah, you can just give it back to Ann. That way we can get that. She can just send it to us. If you can just send her a copy of that. I mean, from my perspective, and I've said this before, I think this is a project that is welcome within the city. I think a lot of people are excited about it and have seen it, you know, as you've had it in the newspaper over the last couple of years, and you all have been looking at finding a different place, and I know it's very difficult to find a place in the city, and I know you have. It's obviously it's in front of the Planning Commission now, and it's, don't get me wrong, I think it's a great project. It's a stretch. It's a lot of money. And, you know, I think from our perspective as of right now, it's, let's keep an eye on it. And I think it's something that we should think about for the future. But I don't think it's the right point in time for us right now. And I know as you sign on the dotted line, you get your plans, then it becomes easier. And it's just like anything else. I think, you know, when I've gone out and tried to raise money for one thing or another, it's always show me something. And you've got something, and you've got drawings, and you've been changing them. Now you're back with the Planning Commission, and you've got numbers. But I think it's just, we need more.
Okay.
And I think that will happen with time.
Would that be, if I may ask, could that be something we come back with another letter after June, July, August, knock on wood? We're
I think if you have more things in stone, kind
Okay.
of, and I know, you know, do you put the cart before the horse or after the horse? And I think it's difficult. And I understand the side about trying to raise money. Everybody likes, well, what they say. Mm-hmm. You know, I'll say something once they say something, or maybe we match it, something like that. But I think that's probably something we can work with you in the future.
Okay.
I'm just curious, can you say anything about your capital campaign?
Yes, we've done, Cam Yorkson's done a feasibility study in which he's interviewed a number of people. And while it's not signing the pledge card, his numbers showed that of the $4 million that we're looking for, I think a projection of potential gifts from just a small group of people within that pool of 40 in foundations was about $2.5 million. So, and then there's another list of people that we need to approach. So it's all positive. He's very positive, I guess, come back to that word, with the information he got on the first pass, you know, in interviewing and the feasibility piece of it. And that we eventually would go for USDA funding to underwrite this, and they so far have been pleased with what the consultant report said about what we can raise. So,
And I would as well think that as you get more information and get further along, that it would come back to us.
okay.
Wesley, I'm in agreement with that. But, and so on a non-financial question, and because of some of the other participants here today, with your 500 students, and that's impressive that you have an educational program that is that extensive. Are you doing any work with the library educational program that they're doing with young people, and or with the Cape school system?
We've been in discussion off and on with the Rehoboth Library and the Lewis Library about doing programming. Nothing recently. And we do participate with a program at H.O. Brittingham every year out in Milton as a function of a federal grant, 21st Century Learning Grant that uses theater to support reading skills. And we're in year 9, I think, of that.
Tremendous, yeah.
And have had other discussions with the other schools in the area about doing similar programs.
Well, the more collaboration you can do, I think, the better for our community.
Oh, yes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And related to that, as I got prepared for this meeting, I was thinking about all the different requests that we have for funding this year and what criteria, in my mind at least, I would use to weigh in on with my vote on whether we should approve or not. And two things that I looked at were, is there community support for this particular initiative, or this particular institution organization? And does this institution provide some sort of service to our local community here? And, I do think that's the case here. And I think, when you come back, if you can underscore where you provide that service, whether it's through kids' theater groups, or I know you do a lot for the community, so I think that would be helpful.
Okay.
When you
we
come
just
back.
had an event with Fun for Women this weekend. So.
Exactly. I know you do all kind of things, so it'd be good to underscore that, at least from my perspective.
Okay.
And again, I don't want you to look at this deferment as any type of lack of support, at least from my end. It's just a matter of timing in the process.
That message has been received. Thank
Gotcha.
you. all. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Wes.
Thank you, Wesley.
Sure.
Appreciate that.
Next, we have the Rehoboth Beach Museum, Executive Director Nancy Alexander.
Thank you for allowing me to come and talk to you all. The museum, as most of you know, completed a substantial capital campaign project. We were closed for 9 months. It was a very hectic 9 months with as many construction projects can be, but I'm happy to say that in September, and many of you have visited the museum since that time, we reopened with a beautiful second floor that has research and library space, administrative space, a lecture hall, and an exhibit space. We've seen a 10% increase just in the first 2 months of 2019 over a similar period of time for 2017. I don't have data for 2018 because we were closed. On the second floor, the lecture hall is a great space. We've had programs there already, and actually a number of nonprofits have borrowed that space. We don't charge them for that at all. We've had 3 other groups come in and give us a couple of donations. They've all said they want to come back. We're just absolutely thrilled with the quality of the project. It's my first winter, as I've told a couple of you, working without a parka on the second floor. So it's nice to have an HVAC system. And we're just so pleased that we have space for our permanent collection. Numerous people have come in and asked for information. It's so nice to be able to have the public ask a question, make an appointment, they come in, we can pull things out of the collection, show them, and put them back. We now have space for conservation. It's been absolutely fantastic, and just the ability to host more people, help more people, is so much fun, and we're just really enjoying it.
Thank you. Sharon, can you refresh our memory on what the past history is for donations and what you put in this year?
The past was the museum electric, and that's approximately $14,000 each year. This year, there's an additional request for $13,685 for exterior caulk and paint, which is explained on page 2 of the sheet that you hopefully have in front of you.
Yes, we do.
If you'd like me to summarize, I can let you know that the building was the original ice house in town. The city owns the building. It was an excellent example of adaptive reuse. We finished the first floor, got the museum up and running, raised the money for the second floor, and I'm pleased to say we have no debt from that capital campaign. We were very conservative in how we moved forward. On the other hand, we did use nice finishes, absolutely fantastic. During the course of the construction and the years that we occupied the space prior to finishing this campaign, we did note that because the envelope of the building is the original brick of the ice house, there was a moisture problem, a severe moisture problem. We've done everything that we possibly can to mitigate that problem. The exterior of the brick portion of the building has been coated with an industrial coating. That coating will have to be renewed somewhere between every 5 and 10 years, so we have that on our schedule. The rest of the building, the beige part that you see with the vertical battens, that is sort of a cement board. And where the battens are, we had the construction company, as long as we were under construction and closed and we had the expertise on site, they pulled sections of it off and looked at what might be causing the moisture problem. And where you see those vertical battens are the seams. They believe that the water is getting into those seams. And so what we did was we asked for 3 bids. We got a qualified bid from Delaware Caulk and another painting company, and they will scrape, caulk, and repaint the building. Since the city owns the building, we feel that it's in the city's best interests to fund this project to protect its own investment.
I'm going to come back to the board and batten thing. So, but I just wanted to acknowledge your letter from Anne Michelle was dated November 15th and explains all that. And as Sharon Lynn mentioned, the typical annual donation's been $14,000, but this year, besides the $14,000, there's above that is $13,685.
Commissioner, I'm sorry, it's actually $25,000 with the total from the electric, the general expenses, pest control, and the anti-hazard. So that's 25 plus an additional 13,685.
And the
Are
13,600.
those the typical annual expenses
Correct.
we've been given? So it's the same amount. What is different is this year above the typical amount given on an annual basis is the extra 13,685.
Correct.
Okay. I want to come back to that in a minute, but a lot of people here I don't think know. If you could refresh our memories on the city, I think forgave a loan at one time, and can you refresh our memory on that?
Sure, there was a loan a number of years ago. There was a loan that the museum was using in order to bridge between the two projects. We opened the first floor, there was a debt. It was, I believe, tied to something else the city was doing. And we made regular payments on that. So we didn't have a problem making the payments. At one point, I believe this body, I was 6 or 7 years ago, perhaps, decided to forgive the remaining portion of the loan. Not the entire loan, but the remaining portion of the loan moving forward. So the city has been substantially generous to the Historical Society in the past.
You're welcome. Well, I think that was a good thing to do. And back to the exterior caulk and paint, I have no problem with that, especially this to me is a unique situation because the city does own the property. My biggest question, I think you already answered, was had you done investigation into seeing why? Because I don't want to just be painting something and then find out that we haven't addressed the problem.
I completely understand that. We had been painting just one part of the building repeatedly on 3 occasions, I believe, for less than $1,000. I have I know one of my neighbors is a painter, and she cut us a really good deal just to kind of keep it going for a little while. The construction company that did the construction on both the first and the second floor, so I know they know that building like the back of their hand. They pulled off sections, 3 different sections, and had Delaware Caulk come out and investigate it. And in one of our regular construction meetings for the construction on the second floor, we had a discussion about it. They determined that this was the best process forward. So we're using the company that knows the building well, that we worked extremely well with during the construction process, and this is their best estimate of how to move forward with protecting the envelope of the building, which the city owns, from the moisture damaging what we've done inside.
Okay, well, I'm supportive of this. I think you've done your homework. Again, my main concern was I didn't want to put money into something that might only last a year if we found out we needed a better building wrap and needed to pull it all off and start over again. So again, it sounds like you've done your homework. So I'm very supportive of that amount. Go ahead.
Nancy, I'm supportive as well. I just have a couple of questions. Is there any, from the company, did you say Delaware Caulk?
Our general contractor was Briggs Construction Company. They did the first floor and then waited with us for 10 years to do the second floor and did a phenomenal job. They are the ones who called Delaware Caulk and the painting company that they normally use, I think it's M&S Painting, and brought them in, pulled 3 sections off. Yeah. So it's the general contractor has chosen these 2 subs.
Did they give you any idea of how long this fix will reasonably last?
We didn't really talk about it, but the entire conversation was centered around, we're sick of painting this section over and over again. We want something that is going to last, and that's why we're doing it. And they're all on board with getting it done this spring. And getting moving on it.
And the only other question I had for you is, I'm just curious, is your membership growing?
Our membership is about 800. We did do a mailing. We do a September's membership drive. Our membership dipped just by about 30 family households. We were closed for so long. It's kind of hard to maintain that momentum, but we have no problem picking that back up again. Our visitorship is increased. The use of the building is increased. So I think it's just when a nonprofit that's based on visitation closes for a little while, it's hard to just maintain that level of interest. But I have no problem. But it's just about 30 member households.
It sounds like it's very stable.
We're extraordinarily stable. I don't like to have problems with money.
Yes, and congratulations for that. Yeah.
Thank you.
So I have a question about the stucco and the painting and the repair. Excuse me. Unfortunately, I have a lot of experience with this because I have a condo in Florida. I'm a president of the condo association, and we restored the entire building because of the stucco. When water gets behind the stucco, it's a problem. And so my question is, are we confident that the company that your general contractor has hired has some expertise in this area?
They do. They work with Delaware caulk. It's not technically stucco. There is a moisture barrier on the building, and then there is the board and the batten over it.
Okay.
And we're just thinking that the caulk has just not done its job. So if we completely scrape, caulk all of the seams, put the battens back up, and use a different paint around the entire building. I will tell you, this is a substantial portion of the envelope of the building. I do not want to have to paint this again.
No, I guess.
And this is our best guess as to what a long-term solution is going to be.
Well, I'm completely supportive. I just want to make sure we have the right company doing it.
Yes, Delaware Caulk apparently is the company that they want to use. I didn't even know they existed, and apparently just do caulk.
Anybody else? Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you, Nancy.
Thank you. Next, we have Rehoboth Main Street. The president, Mr. Edward Jarzanowski, and I don't know if Karen Falk is going to speak as well.
I'll ask Karen to come up as well, and our treasurer, Walt Castle. Also, we have Ryan Schwamberger and Susan Kehoe, board members that are here with us as well. We provided a written report, so I will not bore you with all of the details, but just first say that, you know, as an organization, we're very mindful, and I think we're all aware the city's got some infrastructure and maintenance things that are going to cost money, and parking rates have gone up, taxes are increasing, so we're very mindful and are very conservative in our spending with that in mind. I'll first say that over the past year, a lot of what we've been doing as organization, and now that we're in sort of this second year of rebooting, we're definitely seeing some of the fruition of some of our projects, whether it be beautification or economic vitality, and growing and supporting more businesses in town. And we see the relationship with the city not as just a line item in the budget, but a partnership in which we are helping the city succeed, and everything that we do to help make the downtown area thrive, the residual benefit is increase in people coming and paying the park and paying the rent houses and hotels, et cetera. So with that, we'll answer any questions that you have. Our budget and sort of a summary have been provided.
Yeah, if you don't mind, I'd like to add a few things
Yeah,
as well. If you take a look, we are part of the National Main Street Organization, and we're following the 4-point approach. And that's something that we must do in order to be a Main Street program. So along with that, we have the organization committee, we have economic vitality, and our promotion committee. And through here, we have all the information that you need to know. We did the presentation this morning regarding the capstone. We're going to be doing that again. I feel as if, as an executive director, a lot of what we're bringing to the table is an example of what a consultant could do at much level of when it comes to your spending and investments. And we're able to grab a lot of that because we're a nonprofit for free. For example, working with the Biden School and also with the Sea Grant. And we're going to continue to do that and find more. We're also we're looking for right now, because coming in, when I came in, we missed the boat on some grants, but we're going after grants as well regarding arts. And actually, after the meeting this morning that Ryan presented, I was approached by your consultant from KCI there might be more opportunities. She approached. She's actually going to be going to the National Main Street Conference, and so she's all about Main Street, and she's helping other towns as well. So it's pretty exciting that people are familiar with us and what we're doing. We're getting great feedback. We're getting out there to the community through our email blast and getting a lot of interest through membership. We are reorganizing when it comes to our membership. We are reorganizing the level of membership because when I came in up to a couple weeks ago, we had a free membership, and a lot of people want to take advantage of that. But with that being said, everybody downtown is a member of Main Street per se. What I should say is they participate. So when we have the cookie crawl or when we have other type of opportunities, Small Business Weekend and the Veterans Appreciation Weekend and the happenings to bring people downtown, everybody can participate. But now we're regrouping to make sure that when people are investing in us, they're actually investing and paying as a member. We are redoing our website to make it more, I guess you could say, people could follow it and have more information like we're telling you right now. And we're continuing to grow when it comes to that, and we're continuing to become a more of a vital and also organized organization for the city. All the way from design all the way up to the economic vitality. So we're really proud of all the work that we've done so far. And it's amazing, I think, of the work that's been done so far. I've only been in this position since August, and we already have Rehoboth in Bloom moving along. So we're very proud of that.
Yeah, that's the one other thing I'd like to mention is all of the beautification efforts that we've accomplished in the past year and continuing to, all of it has been paid by sponsors, business sponsors. We've not dipped into the operating budget at all to pay for some of those projects. So we are being very mindful and diligent in our spending.
There's in the very last paragraph that is on the letter that I provided to you earlier. Our membership businesses and our supporters have contributed $14,795,000. And again, I've only been in the position since August. We received over $63,500 that's in kind. So that what I mean by that is people who are willing to give us free advertising on the radio and television, and that all adds up. The food for community unity and so on. And the other thing that is really interesting to point out is that we have over 13,043 volunteer hours that have been collected over the past 2 quarters. So that shows that the people downtown are willing to participate with us and volunteer in order to make us continue to grow and be substantial.
I will open it up to questions.
Yeah, go ahead.
I just have a couple of, I'm very, very supportive of the funding request and just have a couple clarifications from you. The 54 Rehoboth Beach Main Street members, those are businesses primarily?
Well, like I said, we're regrouping when it comes to our membership, but right now what we have 25 to 30, I would say around 25 that are actually residents who wrote a check for $25.
That's what I was curious about.
Yes.
Okay.
And then the rest of them are, there are more coming in. We actually received a check like this morning from somebody. So and that's more of a paying membership.
So, Karen, do you have a goal for what you want that number to be going forward?
My goal is to have every business downtown a member.
Okay, between now and when?
I would say within the next 2 years, have everybody as a member, because we know that we've come back, and we know it's realistic that they need to understand what we're doing and have faith in us. So I really would love for the next goal, if not this year, move it in.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the other curiosity I have is the number of vacant storefronts
Yes, the number, and you know, I am so glad you brought that up because
I brought it up several times.
Yes, you have. And you know, I have to tell you, realistically, when you go onto the MLS, I haven't checked it this morning, but the last time I checked, there's 7 that are available for sale, and there's 6 that are available to be rented. And we know that's not true. That's not a true picture. There's a lot of landowners downtown that they own their commercial space, and they try to lease it themselves. But driving around town, I have to give Jenny Burton credit for this. There's 18, well, it's actually less now because I think it's 17 that we know of. But there are people moving in those spots right now as well. And we also count for where clear space is. We know that some of the folks there, they're not going to be redoing their leases. So we know that they're going to be moving at some point as well. I also am really happy to see that we have, and this is something else that I do, because another reason why I'm glad you brought it up, Ish Boutique. I've known her for years. She has a boutique in Ocean City, and I convinced her to move into town. She's going to be right there right near the Circle. Really proud of that. We have a couple of different artisans that are now working together to co-op a spot, and that's what we're about too, is to help people co-op. If they can't afford it, can they bring in somebody else to co-op? We have Breakfast Guru. We have Rise Up. So there's so many great businesses that are moving in, and that PR is wonderful, and people are seeing it, and they know that we're a good spot to be in. And then we also had the workshop that we just had, the strategic doing, and people are seeing that the businesses that are here are wanting to work together to make it better. So I hope I answered your question.
Well, you know, I know it's a moving target all the time,
Yes.
of folks coming, folks going. And it was a real compliment, I thought, over the weekend that I heard from several folks who had attended the gumbo crawl.
Fantastic.
They said it was wonderful, but the downside of them attending the gumbo crawl was they walked every single street and came back and said, how many empty storefronts do we have? Mm-hmm. So it's great to be able for me to go back to them and say, it feels like you're getting much more satisfied with the number of people coming in versus those that are leaving. And if I've got that wrong, please temper my enthusiasm.
It's looking good. And I also keep in touch, and that's the other thing. You know, we're like an economic development office for you. Ryan's idea is to print out all of downtown commercial area, and we're going to tab where there are vacant spots. And I'm working with the commercial realtors downtown. Great. And I talk to them frequently.
And phase 2 of some of the surveys and capstone projects that we're doing is to identify businesses that the residents want in town and start to specifically market businesses to come downtown that fulfill the needs that we've identified are lacking in our downtown area.
Great. Good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. I, too, am very supportive of Main Street since you reformed 2 years ago, I think. And in that 2 years, I think you've become very energized and productive, and you certainly have a lot on your plate. Thank you for all you do. I wanted to acknowledge that we have an original donation request letter dated December 21st, as well as your handout of March 1st today. I want to thank you for that. I'd like to make sure we have a clear picture of all that you're getting from the city. I'm supportive of funding in the same amount as last year, which is $50,000. Is that correct? But also want a clear picture of what else you're getting from the city. You're getting free rent, I believe, at the old chamber offices.
That's correct.
And what else, huh?
It's on the chart. That's the 13,000 in kind.
Okay, well, what I'm trying to look for is specificity in the total amount. For instance, does the city pay telephone, or do you all pay telephone?
No, we pay for that. So if you look at the second page of the budget, we have valued the rent, the in-kind rent at $12,000, the water utility and electric utility at $360 and $720 respectively. I believe those are the only items that we are receiving from the city.
Gotcha, okay, so give me a pause of rent. This was just handed out. Okay, so equivalent of the 13,000 that you recorded there. Very good, okay. Again, I just wanted us to be mindful that that's part of your donation package.
Yeah, and we also took care of the HVAC system, like when things happen, we make sure they're taken care of.
I want to also echo the fact that, 3-4 years ago, you guys, the organization itself was kind of sitting in limbo. And in the last really 12 to 18 months, you guys have turned it around much more so than my expectations. And, I think you've done a great job. And obviously, the list of things that you've done so far and that you're reaching out and doing, I think is spectacular for the city overall. This economic development, this beautification, I think this is exactly what we wanted and what we hoped for out of Main Street when we put the money on the table a year plus ago. And I think you guys have done a wonderful job. So thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the support.
I'm 1,000% in support of this funding and all you're doing, and just thank you. I see two of our major business owners here, if not more, I'm sure in the audience, and I know how much time you guys are putting in. Browseabout, Dogfish, McCarthy Associates. So you're getting the right kind of support for what you're doing. And so I applaud you for taking time out of your busy work and supporting Main Street. And again, I'm totally in support of this funding request. Thank you.
And just to also add, of course, I do support you all very strongly, and I'm very impressed with your board, and I would love to see you continue on with that group. You all have been very creative, and the idea that you're trying to target businesses that are we need in the city and then looking for them, I think is something new and different that I've never seen Main Street here do before. So congratulations.
I'll just, the one other thing that is very much on our agenda for this upcoming year is helping reach out to groups and help utilize the convention center as much as we can help the city do that. I think it's a win-win for everyone. So that's also one of our goals going into this year.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
One more?
Yes, last but never least is the Rehoboth Beach Volunteer Fire Department. I believe Mr. Warren Jones will submit his information.
Thank you and good afternoon. Pleasure to be with you again. We're passing out our 2019 budget. We've showed you other budgets
Thank you, sir.
As we've been here before, but it gives you a comparison to what's going on this year. As you can see, again, the first page is our total expenses and the second page is our projected income. Again, we're $43,000 difference between income and expenses. As I explained last year when we went through the process of going through that budget, that we'll just won't buy something. The biggest thing that's missing out of the budget is capital expenses. We have a large amount of apparatus and equipment that is past its prime, more or less. And I forgot to introduce the two fine gentlemen who came with me this morning, who look very sharp in their uniforms, by the way.
Congratulations on the uniforms. Nice touch.
John Meng, who passed the budgets out for you, is a captain and an assistant treasurer. And Kent Schwartz, who sitting there looking remarkably well, is one of our PIOs. He's a firefighter, active firefighter, and a driver. And both of these two gentlemen live here in the city of Rehoboth. They are the only two people we have currently that actually live in the city of Rehoboth, which is, a sign of the times and a sign of everything else that's going on. So anyway, as I started to say, we approached you 3 years ago to talk about a permanent funding source. Those of you that were here at that time remember those discussions. And when we did, we were looking at building permit fees and so on. And we came back the second year with the same auction. What we were looking for is some fixed type of funding that would help with our capital investment, our capital improvements. We have 4 pieces of apparatus. One is 31 years old, the other is 30 years old. Our rescue is 31. We have an engine that's 30. We have another engine that's 25, and our tower ladder is 25 years old. I doubt if there's too many people in this room that are driving equipment of that age, no matter who you're connected to. To replace them totally would be about $3.1 million, depending on the time and our purchase date. As you know, everything increases all the time. Prices go up all the time. At the February budget workshop, it was decided to look at some other resources, something else besides the building permit fees that we had talked about. Commissioner Mills was kind enough to set up a meeting, and Commissioner Mills, the city manager, and Evan, and John and I met on February 22nd just to kick around things and throw things out to see what we could come up with. We looked at our budget again. We looked at all the different money that comes into us from the citizens of Rehoboth. Just to recap some of that who weren't here, there are 3,217 properties in the city of Rehoboth. Out of those 3,217, 757 actually donate to the fire company. So that's about 23.5% that we actually get funding from the folks in the city. That total, we run two fund drives, by the way, one for ambulance and the other for fire. That total raised in 2017 was $76,085. So out of those 757 people, we raised $76,000. We started looking at areas like adding a fire fee or an EMS fee to your particular property taxes and so on. When we looked at that, then our goal, as you know or you remember, has always been to try to raise $100,000. That's been the goal since we started talking. Is to come up with that $100,000 number. When we looked at that, you consider that we are getting $76,000 or in the 2017 fund drive. So we didn't want to jeopardize whatever is coming in from that fund drive unless we could recap it from someplace else. And after a lot of talk going back and forth between the 5 of us at this meeting, we decided that, and other issues that came about, like whether the state code would let you do this, whether there was anything else that would cause it to hinder us from adding a fire or EMS fee. So those were questions that are out there, and I imagine they're still out there, so we didn't know how to solve that. So we just decided to go back to asking for that $100,000. For all the years that I can remember, the city of Rehoboth gives us $30,000 a year. We, at times, have come and asked you, and you've been gracious enough to boost that. Last year, you purchased 2 Lucas devices for us, which are chest compression devices for our ambulances to help in the event of a CPR run. If you've ever done CPR, you know that's a very strenuous, time-consuming job where these compression devices take over that manual job that we do. And you were kind enough to buy those for us. So last year we actually $63,500, I think, was a total that the city of Rehoboth gave us last year. And over the years we have asked for other things which you have been kind enough to take care of for us. The whole purpose of this project for 3 years ago was to try to come up with something so we didn't have to come back every year. So we didn't have to come back and ask for extra money every year. I don't know how many of you saw the article in the Cape Gazette when the Lewis Fire Department was making a presentation to the city of Lewis. And I never thought of the analogy they used in their presentation until I read it in the paper. But their analogy was to to look at the responses directly in the city of Lewis. So I went back, and unfortunately, 2016 is the only year I had. I went back and looked at this responses in the city of Rehoboth that we supply. And that's what 16.9% of our call volume is here in the city. So 16.9% of the time, you just might as well say 17% of the time, we are here in the city of Rehoboth either responding to fires or to EMS calls. That total was, in 2016, was 4,147 times calls we went out, and 698 times we were responding here to calls within the city of Rehoboth. So I just thought I'd take their analogy, and so I know a lot of you read that article, and put it in place. If you took that 17% and you multiplied it times our $2,700,000 budget, you would see that that comes up to $459,000. That equates to what our cost would be here in the city of Rehoboth. We're not, of course, asking for that, but we would like to get to that $100,000. You have to remember another very important thing here is our business is saving lives and property. That's what we do. And we do a good job of it. We do a real good job when we're out on the street, taking care of things. We have 15 full-time staff people who get our ambulances on the road. That's our primary responsibility. We have 2 ambulances, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, staffed by full-time people. And if they're on vacation, then we hire other people to take, part-time people to take their place. And when I say we do a good job of it, I want to take you back a year ago, a year last winter, when those 2 large houses were on fire in the middle of the night on Sand Dune Drive, which was just a stone's throw from Rehoboth city limits. When we pulled up at 2 o'clock in the morning, there was 2 houses fully involved. We had 5 more that were in danger of catching on fire. We worked hard, and we got enough people and enough water in there where we stopped that fire from spreading. We saved those other 5 houses. And we would never save the first 2 because they were gone by the time we got there. So that shows you the kind of job we do for the citizens of our district. We have problems just like everybody has problems. But that's where we're at. That's what we're asking for this year. I'm open to questions if you have any.
Walter, thank you. You did a very good job. I'd just like to clarify a few things, if you don't mind, expound on them. And that is, going back to the original request was to take a look at building permits. And we know that Seaford and Sussex County and other jurisdictions put a percentage on the building permits. And in our group, we thought that maybe that's not fair because there are a lot of people in town that never get building permits or haven't in years or decades. So we wanted to spread the wealth, so to speak. So we thought maybe that isn't the right thing. The other thing is pointed out by our financial officers that our property, building permits are $740,000. If we put 0.5% in there, that only brings in, what, $3,600. 1%, $7,000. And here we're talking about such a disparity in amounts that formula didn't seem to work. So if you recall, I proposed, well, how about we take a look at property tax? Well, that's 1.3 million, but again, Bert pointed out that 0.5% is only $6,500 and 1% is 13. Again, a great disparity there. So that's when we started talking further, and we said, well, what if we still go with the property tax thing? And there's a little line item on the property tax that bill that you get that says an extra X% is being tacked on for the fire department. And the fear expressed from the fire department representatives, and we recognize that to be valid also, is that would people start looking at that and say, well, wait a minute, I just got a fundraiser card from the fire department, but I can remember paying a specific line item to the city of Rehoboth for a fire tax. Would that diminish the amount of funding? And the answer is we thought it would, and significantly. So that's when we kind of aborted and went back to the original program of the city supplying a line item of X dollars, and we put in the amount of $100,000 because that was mentioned before, and Commissioner Sheffer agreed to that or favored that in one of our previous conversations. So that's kind of where we're stuck at there. One of the things I did bring up with the group is something that's come up in past meetings, and that is the money's going to the fire department, our downtown fire department. Should the monies be stipulated that it has to be used in our downtown fire department only? Initially I was thinking, yeah, they probably should be. And that can be if we were to donate monies for the Lucas device or for the ATV, a new fire department ATV. That could likely stay in town and be fine. But when they're asking for the extra funding for capital improvements for their ladder truck, the ladder truck that's stationed outside the city, but a ladder truck that is the most appropriate and useful vehicle to come into our town to fight our high-rise fires, then obviously there probably should not be a stipulation on that money. So I am very receptive to creating that new line item and just going forward in the future with sticking with $100,000.
I agree.
I could certainly support that.
No, I completely agree.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I could try to make a case. I could try to make a different case, but it would be very, very unpopular that if Rehoboth is using city proper is using 17% of your expenditures, if I understood that correctly.
That was the analogy that I got out of that article. Yes.
One could make a case for that.
I thought it was a good analogy.
I won't go there today.
It'll be interesting to see the final result.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure.
And I'm certainly in favor. I mean, this is our fire department, our EMS department, and they need to be a priority in our budget. And it needs to be consistent. They need to be able to count on us.
Great.
Well, I have a special deal. It's about the alarm, the fire alarm that goes off. We talked earlier in my first meeting here, and if you would just cut it in half instead of 12 times, go to 6 times, I'd be happy because you've got 2 guys here. I know where one lives. I don't know where the other one lives. And those are the ones you're calling, so.
Pat, I recall you bringing that up, and just recently when it went off over the weekend, and my awareness was extremely heightened, and I could have sworn that the reaction was that you guys would look into it.
Let me try to explain how that works. We have 2 types of alarms. One's called a crew call. The other one's called an alarm. If it's a crew call, the siren doesn't blow. If it's, for example, and I'm the fire recorder, by the way, one of my other hats I wear, but this month we had 6 alarms and 28 crew calls this past month total. And this is our slow time. Of course, it was only 28 days in February anyway. So this is really our slow time of year. So actually 6 times out of the 33, the siren actually blew, unless we're not getting out on a crew call. But that doesn't happen that often.
Blow it from midnight to 6 a.m.
Correct. Good pickup. I forgot that one, yeah. We don't do it after midnight either.
That's greatly appreciated. It's been a very welcome change.
So is there, as far as the siren, is there any chance of reducing the number of times it?
Not 12.
12.
It's 6, isn't it?
I think you did.
I think we did reduce it.
The last one I heard, I'd counted. I think it was at 7:30 in the morning. That's okay, I was up.
But in
Well, it was
September,
midnight to
Chuck
6,
did
so we
say
fell
they
in
would
there,
cut
yeah.
it, they would try cutting
Okay.
it back.
I could have miscounted,
And,
but if you've cut, if,
Honestly, I remember it was something we talked about in the meeting.
Yeah.
And I kind of remember us agreeing to cutting it.
Yes.
Right.
I don't know what we agreed to cut it to, and I don't know if it's been done.
well, then,
I can look into it.
I would request that you perhaps do that if you could. And would you report back to us what that number would be?
Well, I think that's inappropriate at this meeting. It almost sounds like extortion. We'll give you,
I don't mean to.
we'll give you, and so I think that needs to be a separate conversation, 100%.
I agree with you, sir.
Thank you very much,
I
Warren.
support the fire department funding too, for what it's worth, so.
Thank you all very much.
Thank
Really
you all for
appreciate it.
being here.
Thank you.
Appreciate you
Thank
dressing
you.
up for us.
You can dress down next time.
Thank y'all for what you do.
You want to take a minute or so, because I think some of the people in the audience might want to leave and don't want to make too much noise, unless you all want to sit around and listen to the rest of it. Take a minute or two. Thank you all for being here. Really appreciate you all being
Thank
here.
you all.
Well, we'll find, we'll see the next time, right?
We'll get started again. All set?
Okay, thank you. This is our next presentation of the budget highlights, and what I'd like to just reiterate is a level-funded budget and a equal budget as far as revenue and expenses go. You'll see that in the budget highlight summary sheet dated March 4th, 2019. Not too much has changed since the last iteration of the budget. We did have some discussions and we did some tweaking, if you will, of mainly the CIP, which Mr. Miller has put up there. You'll see in the, I think needs to be shrunk down just a bit. Yeah, thank you. So the sewer system, CCTV, we've been playing around with that, and there was an error that was noticed, but the final iteration that we came up with was a $50,000 contribution to that. I will note that Mr. Dukes, who's on vacation, as you know, had an amount in the wastewater debt service that caused a shortfall in the revenue amount. So we needed to tweak that just a bit. There was a shortfall of $86,733. So that's just a typical finding, if you will, in the course of preparing the budget, and we were able to find some additional interest revenue that was initially budgeted on the low side, so Bert was able to fill that in, and we still have a balanced budget in doing that. I did want to, since the last meeting a couple weeks ago, we did reach out to EDIS, our owner's representative for the 3 restrooms that we're looking to receive competitive bids on. They are slated the week of March 18th, after hopefully the budget is passed and adopted and voted on by the commissioners, to solicit those bids and put out the bids so they could start. So they're actually looking to start that week of March 18th. They have everything lined up as much as they can until the budget is finally approved. They'll be working in line with all 3 restrooms to try to get the best economics out of all 3 repairs and spruce ups, as we call them, and depending on the Easter holiday will depend on which. There will be at least 1 restroom that will be open, if not 2. So they're looking to expedite this and have this under completion by Memorial Day weekend.
This is the first I'm hearing that we're actually bidding it out. I just don't remember previous meetings hearing that, so I'm pleased to hear that, because to me, I think the estimates hopefully come in way too high.
So let me just clarify. They're doing competitive bids as the owner's representative. So they're bidding them out individually with folks that they know who do this work, and they will get competitive bids through that process. They're not advertising in the newspaper, but they are bidding it out collectively through their job, if you will, as the owner's representative. That's a common practice in the...
Is that legal?
Yes. Yes. That's what was done, frankly, as the owner's representative for various things for us, for the roof repair under the wastewater treatment plant. And remember that the EDIS was, again, our owner's representative in that. And they went and got competitive bids from different contractors.
Mr. Mayor, excuse me, that was an emergency stated by you folks for the roof at the wastewater treatment plant. Thank you. Keep going.
So
I am wondering why, I want to follow Commissioner Mills' train of thought here. Why are we not doing a more competitive? First of all, why are we, so we're paying EDIS fees to manage this in this process, but we have a public utilities director now. So why are we not managing all this, and why are we paying a middle manager or third party to do this work? I mean, I bet they're adding, what, 10, 20% on top of whatever the fees are going to be to actually do the work, just for project management. Have we looked at alternatives, number one, and number two? If we haven't, or we've decided to go ahead and incur those costs, those management costs, why wouldn't we ask them to do competitive bids through the paper? We have time, so why not do that?
So actually, the work does require a certain amount of advertising requirements, and there is no time, but they are able to do this as part of the structure as a owner's representative. And yes, they are receiving funding from the city, and the Director of Public Works has been in on these meetings with them. It's just outside, I'll say it's inside the scope of EDIS, because they are aware of contractors that are close by to do this work, and to receive these competitive bids. So, for instance, if you advertise and you get a firm out of Wilmington, Delaware, or Newcastle, Delaware, and they're a low bid, of course we don't have to take that, but it depends greatly on, especially for this this refined scope of work, if you will, how much money that will come in, and where we are. So they estimated this. You assume that it's high. I don't know. We'll see what the other contractors come up with. So it was our request that they do a competitive bid and not just pick ABC company. And certainly that's something that is permissible.
Oh, I agree in the competitive bidding. I'm not familiar with this alternative process, I guess, and I'm not sure I'm totally comfortable with it, but I had similar questions that Commissioner Schlosser conveyed. One is, we have the new Public Works Director. Why isn't he doing some of the construction management to save us money? If I interpret this correctly, we've got showers, 7 shower units that are going to be installed for a total of $22,000. My recollection is that's close to the cost of the 7 units, 3,000 plus each or something. So that's generally a cost. But then there's another $18,000 worth of add-ons there. Is that? It has EDIS labor at $5,000. Does that mean the plumbing labor to install that, or are we literally paying $8,000 in EDIS fee plus insurance? Bricks and sticks, $4,500. I'm just trying to be frugal with our taxpayer money, and
Well, the amount that comes off for EDIS is a percentage of the work there, and depending on where this contract lands will depend on the amount that EDIS is paid. Those invoices come through and are checked and rechecked by me and the Director of Public Works for the best possible costs that we can put toward this project. Again, there's a timing issue. There's the fact that we need these individuals to work under a tight time frame, and we also want them to work at each restroom as much as they can.
I understand that. I kind of feel bad because spending so much time on it, because I really want these to be done. But I want to reiterate, maybe I can reiterate this for the last time, I don't know, but I'm still concerned that that we are paying, my desire is that we will have paid for planning, or there's money in there for planning, and that we have given thought to the need for an additional restroom in the north, the need to put family restrooms in, multiple, and that they're year-round, et cetera. And I'm still just, I guess I want some assurance that these renovations aren't going to be undone when we come up with those plans. I'm just afraid that at the Baltimore Avenue restroom, that next year we decide to put a second story on it, and that boogers up what we've already done, or that we choose to tear down the entire building and rebuild it bigger and with family restrooms that are year-round compatible, whereas now we cannot do that because the underneath is uninsulated and really can't be retrofitted. So I just want that extra assurance, I guess, Sharon.
Mr. Mills, I'm sorry, Mayor.
No, and that was what we spoke about the last meeting.
And that's, I'm asking.
Just want to reiterate it.
Absolutely, I do.
So I asked that question several times to John Gerlecki in particular from EDIS. After these spruce ups are done, will that prohibit us from expanding any of the 3 restrooms from going up, increasing in size? And they assured me that that would not, any spruce up would not affect that.
But have we planned far enough ahead to know what we're going to do to add family restrooms such that one of our conclusions could possibly be we're going to tear down the building and rebuild it? Then that absolutely negates everything we just put money in. What is it? $250,000.
Mm-hmm. So again, there are no specific sketch plans but there was a plan on paper, if you will, not done by an engineer, but to expand the Baltimore Avenue restroom to go up and to go out, to include a family restroom. And what was said, so no, there are no conceptual drawings of such, but if there is space available on Rehoboth Avenue, at Delaware Avenue, then they could be added. And that's all part of, I guess, future years, 5-year CIPs, and I would intend to, bring that forward next year at this time.
All right.
Please, Walter, please sit down, Walter. Walter, please sit down. Please sit down, Walter. Sorry about the interruption. Was someone saying something? No.
I think I was trying to articulate a thought, and I lost it.
We're not going anywhere.
I know everybody wants to.
Did it have to do with restrooms?
Yes, it did. Oh, thank you, Stan. I think it was more along the lines that in order to have, or I want to test this, and y'all tell me if I've got it incorrect. In order to have what I think Commissioner Mills is looking for, the plan for the retrofitting or new construction at those sites, we would have to expend some money for design, wouldn't we?
Yes.
That's what I've been saying every meeting.
I know, but
funding for planning.
But what we haven't done, I don't think, is, Sharon, I don't think we have done any design work. Or have you put money in somewhere for the design work?
No money in this next year's fiscal.
So to me, it begs the question, and I think Commissioner Mills, I think you're onto something. Is it smart business to do what we need to do in the very short term for this season versus taking just a baby step back? And I don't know what that would mean for, the refurbish or the spruce up for this year. But it just seems like when you say that we have longer range needs, but we don't have the middle part of the problem solved yet, exactly what are those needs and how do we want to fill them? It does lead you to thinking, is the money we're going to be expending, whatever portion of it we authorize, could be money wasted?
Well, and this is what I'd like to add. Commissioner Mills has made this presentation about the restrooms more than once. So we've known what was needed, and I think it would have been smart on our part to say, okay, let's take a phased approach on this. We cannot afford all of the money for everything he wants this year. So, but we know we need family restrooms. We know we need something for the beach patrol, for them to be able to see out on the beach. I think perhaps we could have gone with an idea of, okay, EDIS give us a phased approach for all of the things that he wants over X number of years. So knowing that we would be adding family restrooms that ideally they wouldn't have in their second phase to tear down the work that we just did.
Right.
So, you know.
And that, of course, was discussed.
Yes.
From, I can say as far back as late last year, but the message I received loud and clear was, as Commissioner Mills put it last year at this time, are we ready? The question was answered that we're not ready because of all the I'll say inadequacies and the cleanliness of the restroom. So this is sprucing it up with an assurance that nothing would have to be demolished next year in order to retrofit to a larger space. But no, the money was not put in there because I presented you first with a $5 million capital improvement plan. I didn't know where we were going to come up with at the time $750,000 to spruce up the restrooms at the very least. But I heard, at least I think I heard, that that's what was needed here. Family restrooms, yes. An overlook for the beach patrol, absolutely. This encompasses all of the cleanup, if you will.
So what you're in fact saying is the plans for this year, we're not looking, they've EDIS, if you will, knows that we plan to move forward with family restrooms and this beach patrol overlook. So with that in mind, we should feel secure that we're not going to be tearing down something that we do.
And that's my problem. I don't feel secure.
Well, but
I would have preferred that we do that design and planning in entirety, and then say this is what we're going to achieve in 2 years, 3 years, but first we're going to do the restroom enhancements. I'd almost rather etch the stall doors and paint them and do some superficial cleanups.
So maybe we put these off for a year.
Huh?
Maybe we put this all off for the year.
Only if, no, we have to do something.
Exactly.
I mean, you've been in there. Something has to be done. Do we have to do $750,000 worth in this year? I don't know. Again,
Band-Aids, I think, in the long run, are the worst thing that can happen. Maybe what we do is just Baltimore Avenue only, and that price goes up because we put a tower on there and we put a family bathroom in there.
So really what you do, what you do in basic project management is and proposals, you go out with a proposal that lays out our short and long-term requirements. So your proposal says, look, this is our vision for where we want to be with the restrooms in 2 years. Come back to us for a proposal that shows the design that gets us, through what we want to accomplish this year. Here's our requirements for this year. Here's what we want to do next year. Here's what we want to do the following year as options. So you come up with a 3-year option plan that gets you to that ultimate vision of where we want to be. And you know this, Sharon. I'm not telling you anything you don't know. We just put it in the contract what we want to do. So the first phase of this RFP says we want to design, the design should accomplish the short-term and then the long-term vision for what we want to do. And we want to make sure that everything we do now is set up to accommodate where we want to be long-term with the restrooms. I mean, that is what you build into the contract. I mean, and the RFP, excuse me. So why not do it that way? And then we have something in writing to appease what we're all concerned with, which is an investment now that's thrown away in a year if some other vendor or somebody else comes in with a new bright idea on what we want to do with the restrooms. So why not just build it into the RFP so we have it in
Do
writing?
that if you'd like to take a step back, but none of this work
I don't
will
even
be
think it's
done
a step back. You just
None of
put
this
it in
work
the
will be done this
RFP.
year, because it takes, we're not gonna be able to get stuff done by, say,
Yeah, but-
May 1st, May 15th.
But they haven't gone out with an RFP yet, have you? For the work?
The RFP, if you will, was done through an owner's representative, which is
Did it go
EDIS.
out to bidders already?
No, it did not.
So why
Well,
couldn't?
I should say that they're working on that now because they are under the impression that if this passes in 10 days, then they're going to start the work.
That's fine. So there's time to modify the RFP to add in our requirement for them to consider our long-term vision. And our long-term vision is, 3 renovated bathrooms with family restrooms over time. So give us the price for this year, for next year, and to accomplish that overall vision into phases, with this being the first option. I'm not sure why that would hold anything back for this year if we do the RFP, if it's tight, if we know our vision, just put our vision in there.
So the current pricing in next year's budget, which you see in front of you, is for the 3 spruce ups for the 3 individual restrooms. The future, year 2, year 3, was discussed with them, and again, I was reassured by them that there would not be any detriment by doing this spruce up now and adding on, if you will, in the future for phase 2 and phase 3.
Is that assurance in writing anywhere, or is it just through conversation?
No, it's in conversation.
Okay, because one of the things in just listening to this that I was thinking about, first of all, it's not uncommon in acquisition to have an agent or whatever role EDIS performs to do this. But my experience has been that you would have some type of a service level agreement with whoever that owner representative company is or whatever, that incentivizes them to, because they basically they serve as a consultant and a broker, in essence, right? Because they have the expertise in the industry to make sure that the right types of companies bid on the RFPs that they issue. And so they need to be, at least in the experience I've had, to be incentivized to get us not only the best deal from an outcome perspective, but at the best price. And so there's some type of a cost savings sharing type of an arrangement that's in the contract that we would have with EDIS. And in that, we could also include language that would provide those assurances that whatever is done in 2019 is not undone, or there's a penalty to them, which would incentivize them to not lie to us. Not suggesting that they are, but if it's just a conversation, we don't have the assurance that Commissioner Mills is looking for and some of the rest of us are looking for. So I guess I just think going forward, we could do more if we're going to use companies like EDIS to help us in our acquisitions for big investments, that we really look hard at whatever written agreement we have with those companies to make sure that there's the right carrots and sticks incorporated so that we get the right outcome.
So Steve,
I agree with that.
just to help clarify a bit for me, because we're kind of all over with this, is there a way to do what the city manager has here in front of us, this $750,000 spruce up, and blend that with the long-range plan that gets at what
there is, and it gets back to
Mills.
what Commissioner Schlosser
So
said,
without
which
taking a step back,
right,
so that things get done in a timely way for the season here, but also gives us this long-range plan and the assurances of the long-range.
If what EDS is telling us is correct, you could do that by having, like a base period would be for the spruce up. And then option periods would include, the design, the planning, the design, and the execution of those future long-term projects. And so if they're really acting as an agent or a representative for us, I think we need to have some type of an agreement, a written agreement in place with them that holds us accountable and holds them accountable to get the right outcome. And maybe it exists, but I haven't heard that. And I don't mean this in any way to criticize what's been done, but I think I do agree 100% with all the things that Commissioner Mills has said in the prior budget meetings, that there needs to be a process where we're doing planning, design, and then the execution side of things. And we can build that into, whether we do it ourselves through our own internal processes, or if we're going to use a owner's representative or an agent, that it's built into whatever agreement we have with them, so that they're incentivized to be the best representative for us that we need them to be.
Well, and I would just comment that I think that in working with them in the past, they certainly are above satisfactory with what they've done for the city. And I just would add that I started out this conversation with them as looking at a full-blown retrofit, if you will, of all 3 restrooms. Again, not to spend additional money that I wouldn't recommend for this year's CIP, to get an architect involved, to draw plans. We would be behind the 8 ball if that were the course that I had taken 4 months ago. My direction, and I could be wrong, was to clean up the bathrooms and get us ready for the season 2019. If I was mistaken by that, hearing all of the presentations that Commissioner Mills made, we can take a step back and not do any of this.
Well, I don't know that you were given any direct guidance, so don't take that on yourself. I think to be able to move forward and for me to be comfortable, what I would like to hear is maybe between the time now and the time that they receive bids or something, have them do an analysis of that and come back and tell us, what are they going to do for the family restrooms? What are they going to do for changing rooms? What are they going to do for the beach patrol, if you agree to even do such a thing? And then when they come back and they say, well, the Rehoboth Avenue restrooms, there's literally nothing we can do there, because if we expand it, unless we expand into that patio, it's just not going to happen. Okay, well then I would feel comfortable, we should feel comfortable doing that renovation 100% with that. If they come back and say the Delaware Avenue restrooms, well, the only thing we want for that is the 3rd restroom in the back. Do you remember there's on one side the women's restroom and the men's restroom, and behind it there's kind of, you use it for women or men depending on the doors you lock off. If they said, hey, that's a place for 1 or 2 family restrooms, then maybe we know this year that we don't need to renovate that back section if we're going to do it next year. And similarly for the Baltimore Avenue restrooms, if they come back and one of their options is we really do think we need to tear it down. Okay, well then we want to have a different, less costly approach to renovate this year, because we know we're going to tear it down. If they say, no, that's not an option, we think the best thing is to go up, leave the men's and women's restrooms there, build a 2nd floor, put the lifeguard station up there, put 1 or 2 family restrooms on the 1st floor where the beach patrol is now, then that says, hey, we're doing the right thing, investing the money in restroom renovations, and we know we're not going to be tearing the building down. So,
Commissioner Mills, you weren't present at the meetings. I kind of wish that you had been.
Me too.
But not certainly by choice. I know that that didn't happen, but I certainly can bring them in. Most of what you just said was discussed. They looked at plans, they looked at the city parcels, they looked at the possibility of expanding the 3 different restrooms. I mentioned to you that they thought on Baltimore specifically, we could go up because of the slope of the parcel and then expand that over. But if you'd like to hear that, I'll bring them back to the meeting. I guess it would have to be on, excuse me, March 15th to be able to, talk that through further with you.
Well, whether the others want it, I would like to want it, because I need a certain comfort level on all this.
And is the expectation that EDIS will kind of be partnering with us throughout this entire process?
That would be my expectation.
Okay, but
yes.
so they don't do the work, they help us get the contractors to do the work, correct?
Yes, they are the owner's representative.
Okay, so I think once we meet with them again, we could talk to them about formulating some type of a longer-term written agreement that would build all these things into it.
They'd be happy to do that.
And in that way, we would kind of know where all the, like the cost for the plant, the architect, planning, architect, design, all that kind of good stuff would be kind of more apparent to us. And that would be helpful, at least from where I sit. So I think that would be a good way to go.
And when they come in, it's you can lay out, you don't have to specify everything these days. That's not the way what Steve was saying. It's more of a service level agreement. So you don't lay out every tactical detail when you ask them to do that. You lay out, hey, this year we want, we want you to come in with a multi-year plan, but this year we just want to spruce things up, but we want to keep in mind the longer term plan, and then would like options for more design, and you know what I'm saying? So I don't think you have to hold up, sprucing up this year. It's just you lay out the requirement for this is what we want to do first, and then would like somebody to come in and do design and architecture. And or whatever we decide.
And it really is a focus on the outcomes.
Exactly, on the outcome.
What's the long-term vision of what it's going to look like in, when it's all done.
That's right.
And then you can build options into it.
That's right.
That can be competed. If you have a group of contractors who are all well known to be highly rated and capable and all that kind of good stuff. There's nothing that is, in fact, it's a best practice to kind of have those limited competitions, and you could compete each phase of it.
But it's all outcome based, not just,
exactly.
Yeah.
And
the first outcome could be sprucing up, and then is our first expectation.
So is there time to have this dialogue with EDS and still be able to go forward with whatever spruce up fits this long-range plan and be ready for the season?
Sounds to me that you would be most comfortable if I brought them in on March 15th. Hopefully they're available to do that. To hear what I heard and what Mr. Williams heard and what Mr. Miller heard, and also Chuck Snyder, to be able to, again, give you that comfort level of what the future holds.
What date did you previously say, Sharon, that they were going to go out to bid?
So they're going to be ready to start March 18th. So the next step in this process, I assume, is that the mayor would place on the agenda a vote. That's what we've done in the past. The commissioners to vote on the budget March 15th. That's kind of like the date that I give everyone. March 18th is the next Monday to take off and do the work. Including the parking folks and those that need to install the meters. They're on hold right now until we push the button. I should say that the parking we did expedite and give them permission to move forward with that. Mm-hmm. But a myriad of different other components hit March 18th, the Monday after the budget is adopted.
Okay.
So I'll bring them back.
So basically, you're going to bring them back. They're going to discuss with the commissioners what people are talking about today. So you're going to keep these numbers in the CIP, and will the commissioners be able to focus on whatever EDIS says the 15th and make a decision at that point in time how to move forward with the bathrooms? That's a question.
It's from what what Sharon's saying, that she's already has the comfort level now, and I believe her. I mean, I know that's I don't have any problem with that. But it would be nice to have an idea, or for somehow to be communicated to us, whether it's email or presentation, of how the next phases will go would be nice. So, but yeah, I think we have to be ready to make that decision, and I believe that they're position to move forward. I know that you're not totally comfortable, but I'm comfortable that the city manager has talked with them about this, as well as Kevin, so they are well aware, and I think I heard you say that nothing would have to be torn out for them to move forward with the next phases.
They assured me of, yes.
Okay, so that's where I am. I'm ready to vote yes on going forward.
And I agree too. I don't have any hesitation or reservation about the direction that we're going, but I just think as we continue to learn about how these things can operate a little bit better, that we consider having a more robust written agreement with companies like EDIS who are going to partner with us to help us get the end results that we need, so that we have not that we'd ever need it, but to just have that in writing, so that we have a little bit more rigor in that, so that they can't say, well, we made a mistake, and then we're left holding the entire bag.
So, Mayor, to answer your question, I can be ready and focused to make a decision.
Okay, good.
Right, we have no choice.
Exactly.
I think, and
Excuse
So
me,
we'll
did
keep
I
these
hear
in
that
managers.
I'm bringing them back on March 15th?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, please.
So some of the other, just again, not to digress, but so we're all on the same page. The 2 compliance officers were placed back into the budget.
Why was that? I had a question on it. I don't recall us asking to put those back in. I'm just curious why they were put back in, or did you get the sense we all, well, not me, but everybody else,
yeah, so that was my
wanted to do that?
That you wanted the 8 seasonal officers put back in. We were talking about safety and the fact that to do without that would not be the best way to move forward. So the 8 seasonal officers at $68,000, 2 compliance officers, and a school resource officer, and of course the 4th one was the merge grant for $30,000.
I just don't recall the 2. Does everybody else agree with the beach compliance officers?
Yeah, no,
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe we said
there was-
that if there was funding available, that
Okay.
we favored that and the
Okay.
additional seasonals.
Okay. I don't, just for the record, but that's okay. There's consensus, so that's fine.
And of course, you heard from the folks today who are looking for the general contributions. And as far as I heard that they're all in there, and that's what's all in the budget, including the $100,000 for the fire department.
I had just a check on something, and I may be reading it wrong, Sharon. It's on, let me just get the page correctly. I just want to see if we're double counting something or if it's 2 different things. It has to do with the bandstand. I'm not sure what page that is. Maybe, Evan, you know what it is.
Railing?
No, that's fine. That looks like just maintenance. On page 31, I'm sorry, page 30. If you go to page 30, there's an $85,000 band program, and then a band expense of $30,000 under recreation and tennis. And then you go to the next page under bandstand, and there's also an $85,000 band program and band expense. Are those 2 different things, or is it just counted twice for some reason, or are those just, it's reflected in 2 different budgets? It just kind of stood out to me for some reason that.
No, they're not counted twice. So
Okay.
What you're seeing in the $85,000 is what Corey has requested for the past, I want to say 2, if not 3 years.
Okay.
And that got him his program that he needed to put forward. The expenses have to do with everything else that there's.
I'm sorry, I'm not questioning the dollar amount. I'm on under the recreation and tennis budget, which is on page 30.
Yes.
There's $85,000 there for band. Looks like band programs.
It's the bandstand. It's an abbreviation.
And then band experience. That's recreation and tennis.
Yes.
And then just when you go to the next page for the bandstand budget, it has the exact same 2 amounts and line items.
And then they
That's all
are
I'm
under the
saying.
same account numbers.
Yeah.
So they look like they're redundant.
That's all I'm asking.
They're not redundant, they're just laid out like that in the
Okay.
117 line item and the 118. So the $30,000 is for, we have a the individual there who runs the systems, and that's how it's split out.
No, I'm just asking if it's redundant, the two. It's in two different budgets, that same amount?
Yes, and it's not redundant.
Okay.
So they're separate?
Yes, one's, you'll see 117 at the top of that page, and you'll see 118 on the next page.
So it's
Recreation and tennis is 117, 118 is the bandstand.
Why does recreation have a band program and a band expense?
Again, that's just the way that, Bert has it categorized and abbreviated.
Okay.
So is the 132 for the bandstand a subset of the recreation and tennis budget? Is that what you're saying? It's just broken out further?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. If that's what you're saying, then I see. Just looks redundant, that's all. I'm just wondering if we had another $135,000 to play with. That's or 115.
I wish.
That's really my big picture question. And it sounds like bandstand, it's 118's a subset of 117. It's $110,000.
Yes.
That's why or 115. Okay, it is. Okay.
But how, I don't mean to digress
No, go ahead.
either.
Yeah.
But how could that be if one is under the 117 and the other one's under 118?
Because they each have their own departments, if you will. So the bandstand is under the auspices of Corey Grohl, and the recreation and tennis is under Tim Bamforth.
Actually, they both say 117.
It just looks unusual because the amounts are identical under both.
Oh, right.
85 grand and 30 grand on both.
Well,
It just has
one has the, if you will, if you break it down, you can look at each 501, 500. If you have overtime, they are different departments.
Okay. It just jumps out because they're identical amounts and with the same title.
Yeah, I agree. It sticks out because in 117, there's prior years, whereas in 118, there's nothing.
So I think we just found another $115,000.
I think we did too. Goody.
Yay.
Sharon thinks we didn't, so.
Sharon thinks we didn't, so,
So then there are new expenses in 118?
They're not new expenses. I mean, that $85,000 has been carried over for, like I said, the past couple of years.
for the bandstand.
Yes.
But why does recreation and tennis, like Tim, what does he have to do with the bandstand programming and bandstand expenses?
Well, they're separate departments. They don't have to do
So why does he need money for bandstand programs?
recreation and tennis
Yes,
director.
yes. Why does he need money for bandstand programs and bandstand expenses?
He has various, I'll call them contractors that come in during the course of the summer. He pays for nighttime volleyball. He pays for arts and crafts.
On the bandstand?
No. Again, that's just the abbreviation that Bert put in there that looks like it's the
just
bandstand.
not labeled to accurately reflect what the work
We can label
work
it
is
differently so you'll understand. And again, it's a product of Munis. So we can try to expand those fields for you.
And the numbers are the same, it just is a coincidence.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Okay,
Good question.
thanks, Sharon.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's just strange. I look at the bandstand 118, and there's nothing in previous years, whereas there are things in previous years in 117, which would seem to say that the band's programming and band expenses should be in 118 and not in 17. I mean, it almost seems like 118 is a brand-new account.
I can assure you it's been
No,
there.
I'm sure. Just, I guess if you
Tim
could just,
Banforth, I think, is on his 26th year here.
yeah.
Is that right?
But it's just that there are no dollar amounts in the 2018 actual.
Okay, as I said, we can expand those fields and
That would be good.
have an explanation.
Further questions, Sharon? Do you have some more stuff you want to talk about? Or Evan?
That was it, unless you have any clarifications.
Well, do we need to finalize how to pay for all these extras? I mean, have we finalized property tax increase amounts? Have we finalized hotel tax amounts? I know last time I was reluctant to go full bore on everything. I think everybody else was fine, but again, have we firmed up what we're doing?
Well, I will say that the 3% hotel accommodations tax is in there in order to balance the budget, and the property tax at 50% is also in there to balance the budget.
And the 60% and 30% increases for wastewater and water, is that in there as well?
60 and 30, as I mentioned earlier, the rate study isn't ready to make a recommendation, so.
But for placeholder, you put this there?
Right.
Yeah. Okay, thank you. I mean, I'm in support of the 3% hotel tax, and again, for the record, I've heard from 0 owners of hotels with any kind of objections or reasoning as to why it shouldn't go to 3%. So personally, I'm support of that. I am in more of a support of a graduated property tax increase. That's just where I am. So I don't know where the consensus is. I think it's at the 50%, but I just, for the record, am for a graduated increase, not a all at once increase. That's just my perspective. But
well,
whatever the consensus
I'm in complete agreement with the graduated. Unfortunately, we're stuck because we haven't had a graduated. I mean, I think this 50% is a definite, and I would be interested in talking about these charts that Bert put up to talk about previous budgets relative to this future budget. But I think this is something that's needed today and tomorrow probably. But I think as we move forward, we can start to focus on next year's budget on where do we take it from here. And I know there were a couple of thoughts about property taxes that, in some communities, they charge a little bit more for someone that's out of town versus that someone's in town, kind of like in Florida,
some communities,
something like that. I mean, I think there are other ways to look at it further because otherwise, I think this is bringing us in line where we should be, but as we move forward, there may be a need on an annual basis to go up with inflation or something like that as we move on a forward basis. And, that may be with other fees as well.
Boy, I was just so struck when Bert was here and he said that our property taxes account for like 10% of our budget, and the parking fees and the transfer tax is, well, I don't have a chart in front of me,
40.
and I don't, 40%?
40 for parking,
And
transfers.
I mean, if we have an economic downturn,
Yeah.
how do we pay for anything? I mean, I see 50% increase is absolute to me, absolute.
And even with that, that'll put us with Bert's numbers at just under 13.5% of the total, which, those need to be the headlines, not the 50% increase, because I think that's overly dramatic. We as a city need to message this out to our neighbors in terms of what these increases really mean. And, I've read some about parking, and, some of the best best research in the country indicates that if you get close to 40% of your budget revenue in parking, you're at the absolute max that you should safely ever go because of the potential volatility there that could just wreak havoc on a municipality's budget.
And especially given a resort community's
Yes.
budget. It's just like out in the West, if there's no snow, no one's gonna park. I mean, if there's here and the boardwalk's taken out and the boardwalk's taken out May 15th and we're like Superstorm Sandy, people aren't gonna come.
Yeah, we were close.
People will come but it won't be 40%. We could see a pretty dramatic drop. And because we are close to 40% of our operating budget, if we lost 10% of that, you're talking $500,000.
Right. And again, I think the important thing to remember is everybody gets kind of fixated on the percentage, which really doesn't have a tremendous amount of meaning until you look at what that 50% is, what the basis of that 50% is. And again, based on the information, the data, the factual data that Burke Dukes provided, and if you look at it spread over the course of a year, it shouldn't be overly burdensome for most of the people who are currently paying taxes in Rehoboth Beach.
And I look at it further as, and again, looking at this chart that Bert printed out, because basically if we go with that 50%, we're kind of in and around where we were in 2013-14. But if you look at any kind of the changes that we've made in revenues as you look back a year and we start to look forward, but with the changes that we're suggesting this year versus as well as rental last year, if you look across at the changes, and this includes water and sewer as well, water and sewer is going to be spread based on usage. So it's whether you're here in the summer or you're not here in the summer, it's based on usage. So it's spread out. So everybody's going to do that, whether you're a business, whether you're a resident. If you look at the rental tax last year, no resident is going to pay for that rental tax. They're passing it on to their tenants. And that's the same with if we did this with a hotel. It's being passed on to the tenants. And, again, if you look across here, with the exception of the changes that we've made in refuse pickup this year, which is $25, and property taxes, which go up, yes, 50%, but on average, as we talked, maybe it's $20 a month, $30 a month. Those are the ones that are hitting specifically on the residents, the property owners, whereas an awful lot of this, whether it's parking, whether it's the rental tax, whether it's the hotel tax, all of a sudden, we're looking at over 50%, probably close to 60% is coming from outside. And so anything that we've looked at, we're not putting the burden on one set of demographics. We're putting it across the board, which, again, if you look at what we have here as a percentage of our budget 2019-20 versus a percentage of our budget 2013-14, we're pretty close to being in line.
Well, again, I've been somewhat reticent to go for the full 50% on property tax. I wanted that incremental increase too. There's a difference between 35% and 50% increase of $200,000. And frankly, I think we have justified all the projects that we have on the books so that we need to do this. There's no frivolous projects in there. I think they all rise to the top, and we need to do it. As far as the hotel tax, a couple thoughts. One is, we've got to be mindful it's not a guarantee. So we proceed as best we can. I think, though, that I'm a little frustrated that we don't already know the answer, because if we knew the answer, I would say let's accelerate voting on it so that we can definitively tell the hotel people what's happening so that they can pass that information on to their hotel guests. In the meantime, I don't know whether we be proactive and tell them it's coming or not, or whether that incites protests. You know, who knows? But one of the things also we need to talk about perhaps is the effective date. Sharon, you put in 3 effective dates, and by your comment earlier, you put in for the maximum. So I think what you're saying is you're suggesting hotel tax effective July 1st, which is the maximum amount. And again, we don't know what the word is.
We're working towards that.
Yep.
Yeah, no,
So we don't have any time frame.
We were supposed to have a meeting this afternoon with Senator Lopez, and unfortunately something came up. Yeah. So we're hoping to get him sooner rather than later to further discuss this.
I just hate to get to the point where we vote on this June 30th and implement it July 1st, and we give 0 notice to the hotel people. I don't know what we can do. I mean,
I think the
hands are tied, I think.
I mean, our specific notice, I think we've gone out, the communications director, I think, has sent stuff out talking about up to 50% as well as up to 3% on the hotels. I know it's been in the Cape Gazette. I had a conversation with one of the hotel owners who owns a couple hotels in town. He was just basically asking about how we came up with our numbers. I passed along the information that's public that Evan put out and Bert put out as far as kind of our back of the envelope number. And he said he appreciated that. He was just trying to figure it out. And hopefully, I know he talks to all the other hotel owners too. So, I mean, I think it's just a continuous discussion, and I'm sure it's gonna be in the paper Friday that we discussed it again. And so I think the more information that we can get out into the public, the better that this is coming.
And there is precedent in several neighboring communities that this has become the law in the past. So there shouldn't be reason to fret that it may not. Obviously, it's not legal until it is legal.
Oh, absolutely.
But there is precedent.
Yeah, I mean, it is, they have this down in Bethany. Mm-hmm. They just put it in place in Milford.
Sharon, on the capital budget priority analysis, underneath property tax increases, hotel tax, there's a mercantile license fee increase. There's a line item that's in parentheses, 546,000 projection for FY19. I'm not understanding what that is. Capital budget outlay. The other page.
Right under
the other page.
Revenue assumptions, yeah.
Right.
Second to the last line on revenue.
Right, to stop there.
There it is.
Right there.
Right.
So you're referring to the mercantile?
No, the line under it, 546,000.
That is for the mercantile license fee increase.
Well, then what is the 72,230?
Additional revenue. So
The 20%.
The total.
Oh, it's already projected
Yes.
in the budget, that 546. That's why it's bracketed. That's not part of this chart. It's just basically saying what's already there.
It's just a reminder that the mercantile license is increased. We're talking 20%.
Okay.
You could actually see that.
Right. Just looking for found money. Okay.
One of the things that troubled me a bit in looking at Bert's numbers were the rental income from the convention hall. And, while that's dropped slightly, my guess would have been that it was slowly increasing. Is there a plan in place for us to kind of aggressively try to increase that?
I believe that Main Street just addressed that is
I
going
heard
to
that.
proactively
Right.
try to solicit. I think that we're looking at, because this is the first full year back, I think we're doing pretty well in increasing that. And I think we need to play that out just a bit because people are coming back.
Good. Well, I hope that's the case. I mean, that would have been my guess and my
Made a
hope.
considerable amount of money on that, you know, because of keeping fees low, and so I think that we're bringing people back as much as we can right now. People are hearing that again. Of course, you know, some people are going to stay away for whatever reason.
And I think, you know, from what I've heard is, you know, some of the people were kind of sitting out there not knowing what we were going to do with rates. And then, you know, the committee came up and had some more progressive rates to get more people in there. And I think that's going to get people in there. We're going to see that over the next year. And I think, you know, we only raised them a little bit relative. And so I think just like everything else, there's probably ways to, you know, gradually go up to get them up. But I think the secret is to get as many of the people that we've had that may have gone someplace else to use it and come back, and then other people realizing what we've done with the facility to improve it. I mean, we've just let in the Greyhounds, so that's something that's not on here. You know, I think unfortunately the Chamber of Commerce, when they used to do their 3 antique attics or whatever it's called, well, they can do that at once at the high school at kind of a very much a discounted price. So I don't think they're coming back because they can only have about 100 in the convention, or 35 or 40 in the convention center. They can have like 150. But I think it's more and more we'll find people that, you know, will want something. And I think it's an active.
It's already increased, Paul. Our bandstand committee just got a report from the city on Friday, and the bookies are increasing. There's a production company now that's doing for-profit shows like Love Letters that I'm not sure they were here in the past. So, and then we're working with, you know, the Main Street organizations taking this on next year.
I guess that's what I was asking. Is there a marketing plan? Because I think you know, a lot of people may not know that it is a good opportunity. I don't think there should be.
It's a good question.
Very many reasons not to come, but I think people may not know. As an example, there's a Judy Collins concert in May. You know, I went online recently, just a few days ago, to get tickets. It's almost sold out. And that said to me, wow, you start doing things like that.
Yeah, that's the second one. That's a production company that sponsored Love Letters, which was outstanding and sold out.
You pack it with shares and you sell it out.
That's
and,
right.
But it takes marketing.
As you know, one of my big things this year has been planning and putting money, investing money in planning and design and things. And one of those things is streetscape for Wilmington and Baltimore. Are we doing anything? I know Main Street's taking the lead on interviewing merchants on that street, and so, but do we need to go to the next step and invest money and hire a designer to come up with a theme there, especially that we might want to do it concurrent or prior to the merge signage, you know, so that what we do is compatible.
That sounds like an agenda item to me, that, you know,
I mean, I think
giving Wilmington and Baltimore that, you know, maybe in partnership with Main Street, and we've gotten some information that we can step forward and talk about maybe bringing someone in to give us some ideas in terms of design.
Yeah,
but
I
we
think
should do
it
that.
takes something like a city planner to come in and discuss with us what we want, and then put something together, you know, much like the merge situation.
I'm willing to invest some money this year to start the planning process.
I think that's probably a chunk of money to have.
What?
A chunk of money.
Oh.
You know, so I think we have to talk about what we want, and I think that'll take a couple of meetings. And then maybe we pass it on to get Main Street's input, maybe get the business community's input,
It's all a part of, like,
yeah.
the mixed use and the whole.
And I
there's-
think,
it's a- we have to
this
approach
is
the whole
kind of
thing.
part of the CDP stuff as well.
It's been in the CDP, it'll be there again, maybe there'll be some additional data that comes out that'll help inform this process going forward too. But we need to act on it. I think what Commissioner Mills is saying, we can't just sit back and hope something's gonna happen without some planning.
I just don't want to be here in 10 years saying the same thing, that's all.
Good point.
Where are we? Any other questions for the city manager? And again, just think forward 10 days. She puts these same numbers in front of us. We have EDIS come and speak and talk towards the situation about the improvements in the 3 different restroom facilities. Are we as a group ready to take a vote on this budget? The way, as it's presented right now, because I'm assuming you don't have any specific changes that you're thinking about moving forward.
I don't have any specific changes. I think this is the last iteration as far as going back and forth internally, unless the commissioners have, you know, something else. I mean, we do have a timeline based on the charter, but I think that the unknown, as far as I'm not necessarily comfortable with, is the fact the 3% accommodations tax. So if that doesn't happen, we built in the 3 separate months. We'd have to, of course, cut back on some of the CIP expenses if for some reason that doesn't get adopted and signed by the governor by July, August, or September. Again, it's not, it's the unknown, because, you know, we're held to not just the mayor and commissioner's devices, but by the state legislature and by the governor. You think about it, why wouldn't it happen? But you never know.
So will you update the capital budget priority analysis by removing the 15% tax increase, the 25 to 35, and just put in what we talked about today, so that that's the only thing in front of us is a 50% tax increase, property tax increase, hotel tax 3% effective July 1, and I think everything else stays. Just cleaning it up.
So you're requesting that we do an analysis of reducing the property tax from 50% to?
No.
Basically, just saying in this chart, take out the first 3 lines.
The options.
The first 3 options, property tax 15, 25, 35, just so that they're not confusing on the chart.
I see, yes.
Yeah.
Simple cross out.
Just
So
updating
we'll just-
so that what's in front of us is what we're voting on without the options.
So it's just based on additional revenue high.
Certainly.
Yep.
Very good.
And the only other question that I had, it's not about the budget so much as one of the things we talked about at the start of this was having a really good, communication strategy. And I'm wondering what that strategy is to get to that 80% of the folks that really aren't engaged, aren't, own property here, but don't live here, participate perhaps in these meetings. Are we going to send out some letter or something, correspondence to these folks to let them know, kind of what the impact's going to be, so there's not sticker shock and such as to, when they see their wastewater bill and their property tax bill and their water bill and everything, kind of increase. So I'm wondering if that's what the plan is and if that's part of it. And if not, how we're going to get the word out as to why these actions are being taken to the folks that maybe aren't here all the time.
I agree. I think it's probably not a card, it's probably a letter, and it's probably going to have to speak to 4 or 5 things that we've just created, as well as a very thorough explanation of what they're for. I think that would probably be a good thing to put out within the next 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's critical.
Absolutely
I do too.
critical.
I think we have a real responsibility to do that, and we're not communicating well at all with the 70–80% of the folks that do not live here.
Agree.
And we have to take that responsibility seriously.
Good.
And I would say it's to everybody that's got a tax account, we send out taxes to.
That's a good point.
So we do on a regular basis, as soon as something is adopted by the commissioners, we do come up with a media plan. We have that already in place for the parking changes that you adopted just a couple of weeks ago, or at least voted on. And as the budget is adopted, hopefully March 15th, then that information, again, through the media plan and the communications department will be sent out to everyone involved.
So Sharon, does that mean it would be dropped on the 18th?
Soon after March 18th.
Okay.
To include some sort of mailing out to
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
Okay.
One thing I'd like to discuss is a possible Plan B in case the 3%, for some odd reason, our representatives say it's something that you can do in the future, but not this year. It's $800,000+. And, as Commissioner Mills said, I don't know that there's any project on the CIP or on the regular budget that's not needed. I think there are probably projects that are more needed, or could be put into the budget if we could find revenues. In the past, again, as I mentioned, I think it was 2 years ago, we talked about the rental tax increase and we postponed it and we went to the capital fund. That may be something to discuss. I'm not saying today, it's just something to put in your mind as a Plan B. I'm not saying, hey, it's a definite thing, let's do that, no question. But, a Plan B would be, what are the projects we can take out? Or, where can the money come from? And as mentioned, 2 years ago, I think we took out something like 1.1 million. And speaking with the city manager and Bert, I think that money's been put back into the general fund in the last 2 years plus. So I'm not saying, hey, take it out and, that's what we have it for, as much as we could use it as a line of credit for ourselves. Because some of these things that we get done this year from a project perspective, then we don't have to do them next year. Right. And we've got those revenue sources still coming in next year, because we're not going and saying we're going to raise property taxes 50% this year, but we're going to give it back next year. Or we're not, same with the rental tax. These revenue situations that we're creating will be for the foreseeable future. And, some of we'll have projects for the foreseeable future, but it's something to think about. Just want to put that out there. Dream about it, please. Any further comments from the city manager? Evan, you sure? Yeah. Good.
I just have one comment. Sure. I have a long-standing commitment where I will be out of town on March 15th, so I will not be here in the meeting on March 15th. It was something scheduled a long, long time ago, so just FYI.
No problem. And just to let everybody know, there will only be 5, as I know it right now, 5 commissioners here on the 15th.
Evan reminded me that we wanted to just go over, just very briefly, the Big Belly presentation to give you some confidence that we're moving forward with that. We just had a conversation with them.
So what I put up on the document center is just an image of what the trash cans look like for those who aren't familiar. So there's essentially the whole concept or the whole purpose of these Big Belly trash cans is that smart city initiative. So these are self-contained units. There's a trash component, as well as with the double station, you can see there's also a recycling component as well. So you can choose either the trash component or the recycling component or both. In some communities like California, they also have triple stations, which include organic materials such as food waste, et cetera. So these units, they are entirely self-contained, so you don't have to worry about wind-blown materials. You don't have to worry about overflow of trash and recycling. They are the ones that we actually put in the capital improvement plan are high-capacity stations. So they're solar-powered stations that have compactors within them. So the whole purpose behind that is that essentially it'll cut back on the amount of trips that the Public Works Department will have to make to pick up trash. And also the smart city component of it is that it gives the city data that we can use. So it'll notify staff of when the stations are full. It'll also notify staff of, pizza boxes are a big concern too. So we've actually contacted a couple references that were provided to us, and a community, Albany in California, they've thought it's been really helpful because they'll also get notifications of when a trash can is jammed from a pizza box or something like that. So staff can be sent out to remedy that. So it provides us real-time information as to when the trash cans are full, cutting back on the amount of trips or just staff going out and looking to see if they're full. It also gives us a lot of information on historical data. So that could be what days are the units filling up the most, what times, and which units in particular. So right now, our proposal includes 14 single stations, the high-capacity compactors for trash. 6 will be located on the second block of Baltimore Avenue. 6 will be located on the first block of Wilmington Avenue. And then we're going to have 3 located in Grove Park, 2 of which will have the recycling component. So this is really a trial to kind of start out, see how we can improve efficiencies within the Public Works Department, see how much they like these facilities and how much it could improve trash collection in the future. One thing in particular I'll note is that you can see on the side, there's also sort of like an advertising, I think it's an 18 by 30-inch advertising space. So that's one component. We're going to be working with Chris Johnson to figure out, what we can use that space for, whether it's special events that the city has going on. Also built into our price is a complete wrap around the unit, which I don't have any pictures of that with me, but it's essentially we can take, a really picturesque, a scenic image of the beach or anything like that, put our city logo on it and wrap it around the entire can. So that's built into our proposal as well to kind of make it a little bit more attractive. We also have the foot pedals as well built into our proposal, which makes it a lot easier if somebody has their hands filled with trash. They can just simply step on the foot pedal.
Oh, pretty neat.
All of the information also will feed, all the historical information, current data will feed to a computer software program as well as a handheld device. So that allows for the information to be checked, pretty frequently. Just going back to sort of some of the references to the other communities, for example, I think it was also in Albany, California, they were able to cut back their numbers, the number of collections from 28 times a month to 4 times per month. And I think the last point I wanted to mention is that they weigh 270 pounds, so we don't have to worry about somebody easily moving them or damaging them or anything like that. Albany, California actually said that they had a vehicle hit one, and it still works perfectly fine. There's just a minor dent in it. So overall, this is just sort of something that we're going to try out, see how it works, see what kind of efficiencies are created. Another thing that I thought was interesting was we currently have, when we had the representative from Big Belly go out to Grove Park, we had 12 trash cans out there, and we're proposing to cut that back to, I think it was 4. So that'll kind of clean up the scene at the park while also creating efficiencies with the staff. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
As you know, the Boardwalk Committee mentioned these, so I'm glad you're trying them out. As far as we recall, there's two manufacturers.
Right.
E-Cube and this, this is a rather big investment, $35,000. Did you think of getting some of each to compare them versus going with Big Belly?
So we actually, I think, had heard some feedback about some of the other providers like eCube, and just from what we heard was that it just wasn't the same high quality product. One of the biggest things that Albany had said in an email that was sent to me in September was that we really like the Big Bellies besides the cost, because it's just so expensive. But in our research, we found that this was really the best option to go with in terms of long-term, how well they're going to hold up, how well they work, maintenance requirements, cleaning the facilities. So overall, we went with this option. One of the things I want to mention, because you referenced the $35,000 number, so our agreement, based on the 16 stations, I believe this amount is for, 16 stations, we have, our first year is going to be $30,474. So it's going to be a little bit under budget. However, the representative said that it's good to have a little bit left in contingency just in case a vehicle were to hit one and repairs had to be made, et cetera. Of particular importance, too, I wanted to mention is that this is a 5-year sort of lease-to-own program. So the 4 years after next fiscal year, it'll be $26,844 a year. So overall, each unit costs about $8,600, but it's going to be spread out over the 5 years.
And Evan, the unit is supposed to last how long? Do they say?
So if I just, my experience with them, probably 9 years ago, having installed them in Provincetown, they're still, the original ones are still existing.
And they do have, so that was another thing I wanted to mention, is they are solar powered, but they actually sell these facilities in communities that see a lot of snow. So what'll happen is they'll get a heavy amount of snow, and then the snow builds up on top of the trash can, exactly, and blocks the solar cells. So they actually have a battery contained within it to continue running the facility if it's not getting any of that solar powered. And the expected battery life on the facilities is 8 years.
Sharon, you said you had in Provincetown. Do they provide a service contract for maintenance and repairs, or would the city be doing that?
I think they do.
No, there is maintenance, but I will add, 9 years ago they were new, so the city was able to get them on a grant loan basis, but now, of course, they took off, and excuse me, they're higher dollar. So there is a service component to that.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing I'd mention, because you talked about grants, if you recall last year, we received a grant from Denrex Recycling Division to start the recycling center. So actually, I've been in contact with the recycling manager there, because he's told me that they're actually going to be doing one more year of the grant, and this is going to be their last grant. So he reached out to me and asked if I had any ideas. And at the time, we were thinking about these Big Bellies. So I said to him, it'd be great if we could, some sort of infrastructure like these trash cans, if that grant could be used to fund the recycling component of the ones that we want to do in Grove Park. So they've taken that under advisement, and I'll wait to hear from him when the grant gets released.
I'd just like to share with you, the Boardwalk Committee first broached the subject when we were talking about alternatives to the big trash truck on the boardwalk. And we came up with this concept, thinking that, boy, if we could reduce the number of trips on the boardwalk, would that be fantastic? And we asked Kevin at the last meeting what his plans were, and he articulated the same thing that Evan shared today, but that they were not going to be on the boardwalk. And it could be in the cards in the future, but I think he was afraid of the the sand and preferred to test them in a different environment, a little off the boardwalk. So
Yeah.
you can check with Avon by the Sea, New Jersey, and see how theirs have held up, for instance.
Exactly. Yeah, and another thought too with putting the trash cans on the boardwalk was just the sheer weight of being 270 pounds. If there's an imminent storm approaching, Public Works best practice is to get things off the boardwalk, including the benches, and to handle 14 or 12 270-pound trash cans might be a little bit of a challenge for them. So again, it's just a pilot. We wanted to focus on some of the core areas that have restaurants. Experiment with the pizza boxes, see how they work, and then kind of make recommendations moving forward. So really just a trial to start.
Yeah, I think it's tremendous, Evan. Thank you.
Good luck.
Thank you, Evan. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Anybody else? If not, this meeting's adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.